Remember when having a BlackBerry was a status symbol? I mean, you might not remember, and if you've never heard of it, look it up. It was quite a thing back in the day. Business executives swore by it. Celebrities, they flaunted it. It dominated the market. And according to Statista, at its peak, BlackBerry controlled over 50% of the US smartphone market and was the undisputed leader in mobile tech. Then, it disappeared. From market leader to completely discontinued by 2020. What happened? Well, it was a marketing blind spot that cost them everything. And in this video, I'm breaking down how BlackBerry went from dominance to irrelevance, the strategic mistakes that stalled its growth, and the key lessons modern businesses can learn to avoid the same fate. Because if you don't identify blind spots early, your business can go from market leader to obsolete in the blink of an eye. I mean, maybe not as dramatic as that, but it will go down. Let's get into it. In the early 2000s, BlackBerry was the gold standard of mobile communication. So what made it such a success? There were three main differentiators. It pioneered mobile email access. That was a huge deal for executives who traveled a lot and needed access to their emails. It had an exclusive premium appeal. Business executives, world leaders, and celebrities used it, making it a status symbol. Its physical keyboard made messaging faster and more reliable than touchscreens at the time. At its peak, BlackBerry sold 50 million devices annually. That's a lot. Even Barack Obama refused to give up his BlackBerry when he became the US president. That's how much of a cultural and business icon it was. But while BlackBerry was at its peak, the market was shifting right under its feet. There was a whole new generation of smartphone users that were coming up. These are some of the key signals BlackBerry ignored. Pay attention here and make sure you're not ignoring the same signals in your industry. The rise of the full touchscreen smartphones grabbed everyone's attention. In 2007, Apple launched the iPhone, and suddenly, the keyboard wasn't so cool anymore. Consumers wanted apps. Well, once they experienced it, they wanted more than just email. The App Store changed the game, but BlackBerry didn't see it coming. The user experience was becoming more important to people than just security. BlackBerry was obsessed with enterprise-level security, but everyday consumers who were now buying smartphones didn't quite care about it as much as businesses did. Instead of adapting to the change, BlackBerry doubled down on its outdated approach. It was the executive's toy of choice, and nothing could ever replace it. Well, it did. So what blind spots did BlackBerry have that cost them everything? They misread consumer behavior by assuming people would never abandon the much-loved physical keyboards. Meanwhile, Apple and Android focused on touchscreen, innovation, and the app ecosystem. BlackBerry ignored market trends. So instead of adapting to the shift in mobile usage, they kept pushing business-first features, ignoring the fact that the market was going mainstream. The signals were there. They could have pivoted and adapted, but hey, they waited too long. By the time they tried launching their own App Store in 2009, Apple and Google had already won the battle. Their attempts to release touchscreen models felt a little bit too late, and quite sad really. They were playing catch-up, and their consumer base, it had moved on. The iPhone was now the new kid on the block, like the really new cool kid on the block. By 2013, BlackBerry's market share had plummeted to less than 1%, and by 2020, BlackBerry officially discontinued all phone support. What a tragedy. BlackBerry didn't fail because of competition. It failed because it ignored what its own customers were telling them. This is a classic case of a company getting comfortable with dominance and failing to adapt. The misguided illusion that people don't change and that they'll always love the brand. People are loyal to themselves and the fulfillment of their needs. As a marketing strategist, I help businesses identify and eliminate these blind spots so they don't repeat BlackBerry's mistakes. Let's break down exactly what BlackBerry should have done and what modern businesses can learn from this failure. BlackBerry ignored key customer segments. They focused too narrowly on corporate consumers, ignoring high-growth consumer markets. Having a niche can be profitable, but you need to know what's happening within the rest of the market. They failed to recognize consumer adoption trends as a mass-market smartphone. Apple and Android expanded into youth, entertainment, and social media users, capturing millions of customers that BlackBerry had traditionally ignored. They could have targeted younger professionals who were driving smartphone adoption, but their messaging never evolved to engage them. The smartphone market was becoming personal. It wasn't just functional and no longer exclusive to executives. Apple marketed the iPhone as the status symbol, an entertainment device, and a creativity hub. While BlackBerry could have repositioned as a lifestyle brand for the market they had already captured, but sadly, they just never made that change. Instead of only defending its corporate strongholds, they could have aggressively expanded into high-growth regions like India, Africa, and Southeast Asia, where smartphones were becoming essential. Market expansion isn't about sticking to your existing audience only. It's about recognizing where the next million customers that are relevant to what you're offering are coming from. BlackBerry focused too hard on hardware sales, missing the chance to monetize through software and services like Apple and Google did. They could have easily designed a subscription and software as a revenue model. They would have done really well, actually. They had world-class security and messaging system. Remember BlackBerry Messenger, BBM? That was WhatsApp before WhatsApp was what it is now. But instead of making it a cross-platform, they locked it to their devices, limiting adoption. Apple and Google, on the other hand, monetized through App Store, subscription services, cloud ecosystem, making their business models more profitable and relevant to the markets they were serving. BlackBerry could have turned BBM into a paid enterprise messaging platform. They had a security-first infrastructure that could have made BBM a dominant global communications platform. Think Slack, Teams, Zoom. But with BlackBerry's security strength, businesses would have tripped over themselves getting it. Apple monetized through iCloud, Apple Music, and App Store commissions. BlackBerry could have introduced B2B subscription models for data security, encrypted messaging, and cloud storage. BlackBerry didn't prioritize developers the way Apple and Google did. Instead of competing with the App Store, they could have integrated Android apps earlier, allowing more consumer choice. They had the market, but they didn't adapt. They failed to optimize distribution when consumer buying behaviors shifted. Between 2007 and 2012, BlackBerry phones were still primarily sold through telecom providers instead of expanding direct-to-consumer channels. Apple and Samsung did not play around. They built strong retail ecosystems, Apple stores becoming brand experiences that solidified customer loyalty. BlackBerry lacked a retail presence and had no way to directly engage with customers. This blows my mind. Was no one ringing alarm bells at their office? They could have opened experience stores. They had the capital. They could have launched experience hubs showcasing its security features, business tools, and mobile innovations. Apple saw the gap and they filled it with flagship retail stores that allowed customers to interact with their products. Instead of relying on mobile carriers to distribute their devices, they could have invested in stronger direct-to-consumer e-commerce strategies. Apple expanded aggressively into global markets. They knew there was a whole world outside the US. But BlackBerry's carrier partnerships didn't scale as fast in key regions like China, India, and Latin America. And while BlackBerry did control distribution early on, they failed to evolve when buying behaviors shifted to direct-to-consumer models. Instead of collaborating with Google to create a secure Android-powered BlackBerry, they waited too long to make their OS compatible with Android apps. They had enterprise security dominance, but they never partnered with software providers like Microsoft or IBM to integrate their solutions. Apple and Google won because they built ecosystems, not just devices. If BlackBerry had partnered with Google, they could have developed a secure version of Android that kept their security advantage while benefiting from the Android ecosystem. They could have partnered with banks, government agencies, healthcare providers to provide exclusive encrypted communication tools. They could have launched enterprise AI tools for professionals. If you can't win alone, build an ecosystem that makes your brand indispensable. BlackBerry was way ahead of everyone within that industry. But it was a legacy brand that failed to reposition itself for the next generation of users. Apple evolved from Apple Computer to a lifestyle and tech brand. Google evolved, focusing beyond search, while BlackBerry stayed trapped in its identity as a corporate email tool, even when consumer preferences shifted. They should have repositioned as a future-focused mobility company instead of clinging to its past. With growing concerns about data and security and surveillance, BlackBerry had an opportunity to own the cybersecurity conversation. Instead of defending the keyboard, the physical keyboard, they should have reinvented mobile security for the modern age. The brands that survive for years are the ones that reinvent the narrative before the market forces them to. Blind spots don't just cost you revenue, they cost you market leadership. BlackBerry didn't fail because of bad products. They failed because of a really bad strategy and really failing to listen. They ignored market shifts. They assumed their customers wouldn't change, and they reacted too late. Here's what your business needs to do differently. You should constantly do your research and adapt to changing consumer behaviors. Research is not wasting money. Invest in it. Customer centricity wins every single time. Your strategy should be based on data, research, not assumptions. And if you're not thinking long term, you are already falling behind. Business growth isn't about today. It's about where the next market is coming from, where the market is going to. And this is exactly what I do for businesses. If you're serious about scaling and eliminating blind spots before they cost you millions of dollars, let's talk. What do you think BlackBerry's biggest mistake was? Drop your thoughts in the comments.